Hi guys, this is Sudhir and I'm back with one more YouTube video, and this time I'll be speaking about inventor and inventions. So this is the first video in this series, and today I'm going to speak about a famous invention. Uh, so how one failed businessman destroyed the monopoly of knowledge. So this is the topic of today's, and the and we'll be speaking about the Gutenberg story. So friends, today we take books for granted. You can buy a bestseller for the price of a coffee or download 10,000 books onto a device that fits in your pocket. But 600 years ago, a book was a luxury that only the ultra wealthy 0.1%, as we know, could afford. In the back in 1400, if you wanted to buy a copy of the Bible, a monk had to sit in a room for 3 to 5 years to handwrite it, because of this a single book could cost as much as a luxurious house, and this created a knowledge monopoly. If you couldn't read and couldn't afford to buy a book, you had to believe whatever the elites told you. But then a failed genius German businessman named Johannes Gutenberg decided to gamble everything on a crazy idea. He didn't just invent a machine, he invented the internet of the 15th century. And in today's topic, we are going to understand the business pivot that led to the printing press, and why the church actually funded the machine that eventually weakened its power, and the most important lesson for every inventor watching this channel. So before the printing press, Gutenberg was just a goldsmith, and like many entrepreneurs, his first big venture was a massive failure. He invested a huge amount of borrowed money into making holy mirrors. That the plan was his plan was to sell them to the pilgrims who believed in those days that these mirrors could catch holy light from religious relics. But a massive flood hit the city, the pilgrimage was cancelled, and the Gutenberg was buried in debt, my friends. His investors was furious. To save himself from prison, he told them about his secret project. He realized that if he could use his goldsmithing skills to carve individual letters of metal, letters that could be moved, rearranged, and reused, he could mass produce knowledge. And this idea was brilliant. This was the birth of movable type. And now, why was Gutenberg's invention a game changer? First, he didn't just invent one thing, he performed system integration, as we call it in development. He took the wine press used for making alcohol and turned it into a printing press. He invented a new oil based ink because the old water based ink wouldn't stick to a metal. He created a metric system to cast thousands of identical metal letters. A scribe in those days could produce just one page per day, but the Gutenberg's press, on the other hand, could produce 3,600 pages per day. This was the first time in history the marginal cost began to drop. The more books you printed, the cheaper each book became. But Gutenberg needed a killer app to prove his business model. He chose the Holy Bible. He printed 180 copies before he even finished. They were all pre sold. It was the first tech product launch in history. But here is the irony: the Catholic Church initially loved it because they could print indulgences. Indulgences is something called it's slips of paper sold to forgive sins, to make money. They didn't realize that by making the Bible affordable, Gutenberg was giving the common man the power to read and interpret the text for themselves, leading directly to the Reformation and the scientific revolution that, as we know, changed the massive history of this world. And now we can see all the development and the progress. It's thanks to Gutenberg invention, printing press, which led the literacy to spread every corner of this world. But friends, there is a dark side to this story. Despite changing the world, Gutenberg died almost penniless. His business partner and financier, Johann First, sued him for the unpaid loans just as the Bibles were being finished. First won the case and seized the entire printing shop, taking the credit and the profits. Gutenberg was a brilliant inventor, no doubt about it, but he was a terrible venture manager. He spent so long perfecting the technology that his cash ran out before he could scale. So, what can we learn from the Gutenberg story? So, there are three things we can learn from this story. The first is convergence is key. Most great inventions are just existing tools, like a wine press applied to a new problem. So we must understand that convergence is key. We can just use the existing tools out there and apply it to a new problem and solve that problem. This can lead to a different technologies. So always remember, all my dear inventors, friends, convergence is key. And the second thing which we can learn from the story, power of distribution. In 2026 we say content is king, but Gutenberg proved that distribution is the kingdom. And the third thing is protect your equity. If you are an inventor and entrepreneur, being a genius in the lab isn't enough. You must understand the first of the world, the business side of your inventions. Gutenberg lost his company, but he won history. Within 50 years of his death, there were millions of books in Europe, literacy rates skyrocketed, and the modern world was born as we know it. If you found this case study helpful, hit that subscribe button down below. For more curiosity driven science and business stories, please subscribe and comment down below. Thank you.